my experience. I have nothing but confidence that Judge Ingram will be a good judge and will do what she believes to be right and be unbiased.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that, but then when she's doing sentencing, she's heavy on the sentencing.
I cannot believe how crazy this trial has gotten. The YSL RICO trial has got even crazier. Most recently, the new judge that was appointed to preside, I should say, over this trial has recused herself. We're going to get into it and we're going to talk about exactly what's going on and some of the reasons she gives behind what's happening. I'll also give you guys some background on why she may have considered this and some of the things that she has to deal with if she were to take over this trial in general. All right, but check it out. Shout out to Thugger Daily. Thugger Daily has been doing an amazing job breaking news on this case and covering it. And we got this, we've got everything that was sent in by Judge Ingram saying that she recused herself. Now, we talked about her a little bit yesterday when she was appointed or assigned to this trial. And she's been in Fulton County since, I believe she's been in the Superior Court since 2018. So she's been doing her thing. She's a great judge. Most that I've heard about her has been positive, whether that's from the defense or that's from Little Woody speaking on her. Even Caleb Bumpus was talking about her as well. So let's see what's going on here. Thugger Daily says Judge Ingram has recused herself. Her deputy was the deputy arrested for an improper relationship with Thug's co-defendant. Oh, man. Big Briss, or Chris, we should say, Christian, I'm going to mispronounce that last name, and she didn't want the potential appearance of impartiality. All right. So here's everything that she says, and she gives her reasoning as well. Order of recusal. On or about June 1st, 2023. Christopher E, Kristen E, as we're going to say, one of the 18 defendants, was served from the ongoing YSL RICO trial on the criminal action that was recently transferred to this court by random assignment. All right. Although there is no severance order in the record, the court was apprised of the circumstances that directly led to E's severance. More specifically, the deputy assigned to and responsible for the courtroom and personal security of the undersigned for nearly 6 months was arrested. It's no good, man. No good at all. Said deputy, who was still assigned to this court at the time of her arrest, is accused of 1, colluding with defendant E, I think it's Eppinger, during the current trial to commit a felony, and 2, endangering the safety of citizens within the Fulton County courthouse. All right. And then you see it mentioned here, the state of Georgia versus Mr. Stanley, it looks like. All right. Because this court's former assigned deputy could be called as a witness in any further proceedings in the case, the court may be called upon to assess the deputy's credibility or rule on matters related to her criminal prosecution. This may undermine the public's confidence in the impartiality of the proceedings. Man, yo, this is crazy. I mean, we're just finding out more and more and more information about some of the wild things that are not just going on behind the scenes in this trial, but behind the scenes in Fulton County in general. I mean, and I guess if you look at who's at the top with Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, it's no surprise that all of this is going down, but this is crazy, man. While the court does not regard the aforementioned situation as creating any actual bias for or against any party to this case, the court does view this as a matter that could cause a reasonable person to question the court's impartiality and reasonably give rise to the appearance of impropriety should the court remain on this case. Right, Rule 2.11 of the Georgia Code of Judicial Conduct, we talked about that a lot on this channel, provides that judges shall disqualify themselves in any proceedings in which their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Commentary 2 to that rule provides that judge should disclose on record or in open court information that the court believes the party or their lawyers might consider relevant to the question of disqualification, even if they believe there is no legal basis for disqualification. Which, shout out to Judge Shakira Ingram. If you look at her track record, she does have a record of doing the right thing. She does have a record of being fair, and we can see her with getting ahead of this in the first place, right? And it says, thus, after careful consideration and consistent with the Georgia Code of Judicial Conduct, Rule 1.2a, promoting public confidence in the independence and impartiality of the judiciary, and Rule 2.11, which we just talked about, requiring disqualification when the public might reasonably question a judge's impartiality, the undersigned hereby recuses herself from this criminal action. All right. There it is. There it is. And let me actually do one more thing. I gotta pause this real quick. Here we go. So the clerk of court is directed to reassign this criminal action to another judge. So ordered, this on the 17th day of July 2024. So this just happened a couple of hours ago. We can actually see, does it show the timestamp? Yeah, this just happened at 9:52 this morning. So she didn't take much time to think about it. She had a couple of days after this had been assigned and had to look into it. Now, I want to remind y'all who this is. Again, here is Judge Shakira Ingram. As we said, she has been on the Superior Court since 2018. She was a magistrate judge from 2015 to 2018. So she's fairly new, but as y'all can see, there is still a lot of connections within the Fulton County judicial system. Some lawful, some unlawful. But if you go back and you look at her track record and how she's composed herself as a judge, she has been very about her business. She has handled a lot of these cases and a lot of the caseload that she's had very well, which kind of goes into another topic on this conversation. Is one of the reasons that she may have given this up as well is because she has such a huge caseload with everything that she's currently handling. Because she is not the chief judge in this case, she does have a lot of cases that she would potentially be handling in addition to this YSL trial, which I can imagine would be a nightmare. But before we get into that, I wanted to remind you guys kind of what happened with this whole situation, because it's interesting to see not only how everyone's connected, but just how this case has gone leading up to this point. Because as you guys may remember, most recently we had a ruling from Judge Rachel Krause to where she said, hey, we've got to get Judge Glanville out of here. And that's what kind of started this snowball in the first place. And you even look at what she said in this last page, and we've read it several times. Judge Krause did not want to get Judge Glanville off of this case. And she made it clear that she still respects him. She still wants to make sure she keeps her name safe in the Fulton County court. And she kind of threw Judge Glanville a bone, even though she was telling him, hey, you have to get off the case. I wanted to go back and look at her motion here. And this was, I want to make sure I get the date right too. So this is from Monday. This was ordered by her on Monday at 11 a.m. And we went and reviewed this whole thing. But y'all check out what she said at the end of her motion here. I thought this was interesting. All right. Judge Rachel Krause said before she got Judge Glanville up out of there, she said, this court has no doubt that Judge Glanville can and would continue presiding fairly over this matter if recusal motions were denied. OK,
stop the cap.
I don't know how she's seeing that. Maybe she's seeing something different than us, but we talked about it yesterday and most of y'all agreed that it was strange that she would say this, seeing everything and all the evidence leading up to Judge Glanville getting kicked off the case. Nonetheless, she gave him a bone and she said, but the necessity of preventing or preserving the public's confidence in the judicial system weighs in favor of excusing Judge Glanville from further handling this case. And then she goes on to say, Yak Gotti his motion's granted. And then we had Young Thug's motion was granted as well. And then she said, you got to get up out of here, Judge Glanville. And she ordered that on Monday. So I think it's interesting to see some of the things that are happening behind the scenes, because it starts to make you wonder, is there something we're missing here? Because you guys may remember, this is not the first judge to recuse themselves. If you rewind way back to when Brian Steele went to the Supreme Court and he said, hey, listen, first of all, I don't like the fact that Judge Glanville has been talking about me this way and he's been handling things this way. Secondly, I don't think I should have to spend 20 weeks in prison just because I didn't want to give him the name of the person who told me about the ex parte meeting. All right. He said, and third, I don't know why Judge Glanville is presiding over these recusals anyway. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like the thing that he's legally supposed to do. So all of that went down. Judge Glanville eventually got an order from the Supreme Court to say, hey, you're off of this. You can't rule on these recusals. So the first time they went through their system and they reassigned these recusals to a judge, y'all might remember it got assigned to the Honorable, I should say, Judge Belinda Edwards. And we kind of talked about her a little bit as well. Gave a little bit of background between her and Glanville. They had been working together for 7 years, very familiar with each other. And the interesting fact that I didn't realize when I made that last video, I realize now, her courtroom is in 8E. Guess what courtroom Judge Glanville is in? Judge Glanville is in 8F. So they got courtrooms right next to each other, and they've been working together for 7 years. Y'all can see her record here as well. So she got assigned to Judge Glanville's recusals first. All right. She didn't really give a good reason on why she didn't want to go on and why she didn't want to rule on those recusals. She just said, no, I'm out. I'm not handling it. Somebody else could take it. And then once she recused herself, it was passed on to Judge Rachel Krause. And then we get to where we are now, right? We get to where we were with Judge Ingram. Now that Judge Glanville is off of the trial, her being assigned to the trial. Now, some interesting things I want to point out about that, and shout out to the infamous Sylvia. I will have a link to her channel and to this video specifically where she's talking to one of Young Thug's attorneys about what this transition process is going to look like and giving some background information on Judge Ingram, which I think is interesting because, as I mentioned, with her not being a chief judge or not being the chief judge, she still has a lot of extra work that she's going to have to do. So let's rewind this a little bit and check out what Sylvia was able to hear from Keith.
He is a well-learned, a fair, impartial, good judge. And I expect it to be a net positive for us as we move forward.
And she operates based on what the law says then.
That's been my experience. I have nothing but confidence that Judge Ingram will be a good judge and will do what she believes to be right. Be unbiased.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that, but then when she's doing sentencing, she's heavy on the sentencing.
By the grace of God, we don't intend to get to a point where we're facing any sort of sentencing.
Okay. All right. How can a judge continue a trial with all the testimony that has happened already?
That would be difficult, but not impossible. And that would be that's an issue I believe that will be addressed. The court and the attorneys will have to make an assessment of whether they believe it is doable, and that issue will be addressed, and we'll see how it's ruled upon.
Okay. Now, this live stream took place yesterday, so it's interesting to see a lot of these questions. We kind of talked about it during the last live stream as well, how there's so many things that she's going to have to look at. Someone brought up in the chat, they think the biggest issue they're going to have moving forward is going to be the witnesses, because just think of all the things they've seen. Some of them, I don't know, some of them might even be watching this live stream right now, even though all this stuff is going on. Then you've got the jury as well. The jury's not supposed to talk to anybody about the trial. They're not supposed to have any outside information about the trial. And this trial has been the biggest thing in Georgia. Fulton County history for sure, but in Georgia history as well. So, everybody is hearing about it and what's going on. So now Keith is going to talk about what would happen in this situation if Judge Ingram were to take over, which now we know she's not, but check it out.
The other question.
It's not impossible.
Okay. Do you think she would recuse herself as well?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Well, she did.
All right, because it might become overbearing, because this case here, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. It is a big pill to swallow. It is a huge case. It is a tremendous consumption of time and effort and attention. And, Judge Ingram, unlike Judge Glanville, is not the chief judge. Chief judge has a lower caseload than the other judges. And so, Judge Ingram, or any other judge for that matter, would have to handle this matter in conjunction with their other cases. Much like, by way of example, Judge McAfee is the person who is the judge who was assigned to the Trump case.
Mm-hmm.
And so as big a case as that is and as much attention as it demands, he still has other cases to handle in his courtroom. So yeah.
And if you look at her caseload, there's been times she's been handling over 100 cases at a time. So I get it. There's a lot going on. Of course, this connection that they have with one of the defendants is definitely pretty interesting, but I think there's a lot more that goes into this. Y'all have to let me know what you think about her recusing herself. Is there more to it? Does it possibly have something to do with the DA? The district attorney, Fannie Willis, I know is going to be putting a lot of heat on whoever takes over this case, specifically considering just how big this case is and all the moving pieces and everything that's going to have to be done. So maybe that could be a reason Belinda and Judge Ingram tried to get up out of there, because they didn't want any of that smoke. I don't know. Y'all let me know what you think.